Welcome to the Bias Buzz. I'm Don Irvine. He's Brian McNichol.
Good morning.
Good morning. Feels like deja vu all over again here. For those that weren't with us before. All right, back to so National Applesauce Cake Day. Great stuff.
Great stuff.
Great stuff.
And moist cake. Most of the apples for it is not too far from here, like Winchester, Martinsburg, West Virginia. It's big apple country on the East Coast. Out west, of course, of Washington, Oregon, grow a lot of apples.
So I guess apples. I guess the whole apple industry kind of recovered after the whole Alar thing from like 25 years ago. So it's safe to eat, safe to drink again. Not like it was ever a problem.
It always was.
All right, but the other day, this is also the D-Day anniversary, 73rd anniversary of D-Day. So this is a big deal.
You think about the incredible courage it must have taken to come off those boats. The enemy has the high ground. You know it. You know that. Some percentage of all the people you're going off that boat with are going to die. It's not a small percentage, and one of them might be you. I mean, imagine the guts it took to do that. It's just unbelievable. And like everyone just did it. There was no question.
Yeah, and I was reading about it today because I realized that I didn't know enough about it. You just hear about this. I just kind of grew up hearing about this and how historic it was and what a big deal this was. Obviously to go in there, but I didn't realize. And this is just my own ignorance. I think that the National D-Day Memorial is in Bedford, Virginia.
Yeah.
And that's because.
Well, there's more than one. There's one in New Orleans.
Well, okay, but there's one there. Well, okay, so I'll say the one in Bedford. The reason there's one in Bedford though is because they had the highest per capita loss rate of people for that invasion, and that's pretty stunning. And everything like that. So that was kind of interesting. But now it makes me kind of curious that I think I'll actually have to take a closer look at this in terms of paying my respects to those who gave their lives for that. I think I read it's like 254 soldiers died, 525 were injured or something like that. For our side. But the whole plan. Dwight Eisenhower was ready to. He had a letter of resignation prepared. Should it not go well, and it wasn't going well at the beginning.
Yeah, and it changed the course of the war.
Right,
changed the course of history.
Absolutely,
they went from winning to losing.
Yeah.
When we got on that beach.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so news. Actually, just the breaking news just beforehand. We don't really. It's so new. I don't even know all the details. But apparently, some guy attacked a policeman with a hammer at the Cathedral of Notre Dame.
In Paris.
In Paris, yeah. Could be a terrorist-related attack. Could just be some crazy everything like that. But right after all these these horrific London attack over the weekend, your senses are just heightened.
Yeah, and one of the things they're talking about is using conventional everyday stuff to attack people: hammers, vans, as they did in London, big trucks as they did Spain or Portugal earlier. Whatever's handy.
Right.
You just take it, and people won't realize you're on them until you're on them. And also, the West needs to wake up to this. For a certain percentage of these people, the thing is to knock out Christianity. They're trying to get a Christian-free Middle East, right? And they're getting close to it. And what is the United States security interest in having Christians be able to stay alive in the Middle East? I don't know, but it's time to think about what is that answer and what are we willing to do for it, because it's getting in our face more and more every day.
Yeah, and this attack in London, once again, how do you we talked about this before. You really can't prevent these things. A guy's driving a van. There are knife attacks. He's mowing down these people on the London Bridge. This is just it's insanity. But it's effective to get it does the job for them, right?
Yeah.
And so then I'm looking down here, I'm looking at it. So they've identified these the perpetrators who they shot them all dead. Karam Shahzad Butt, Yusuf I can't even Zolbak, I can't even remember my handwriting, and Rashid Radwan. They've identified these guys now. I guess this Karam Shahzad Butt, he'd actually been kind of on a watch list of some sort. They were kind of aware of him, but they didn't do anything with him. The others were not as well known. They're somewhat homegrown in the sense. I think Butt he grew up here, but they're of Pakistani descent. The other ones are Moroccan, Italian. It does, I mean, all of this did lead to the president to kind of reinforce the whole travel ban issue and bring that back up again.
Right. That's one of the things he did. The other thing, what the president is trying to do is separate Muslims who can live in peace from those who can't. And so it's starting to make a real difference. I don't know, little known thing, yesterday or the day before, it was reported that the Saudi Arabia, 3 or 4 other Arab countries cut off funding to Qatar, cut off diplomatic relations, all kind of flights. You can't go in or out of Qatar because Qatar refused to renounce state-sponsored terrorism. You think about this. This is Saudi Arabia demanding of another country that it stop state-sponsored terrorism. How did that happen? Where did that start, right? So you're having things all over the country where they're pushing back on this. The things he's doing, people are policing themselves. They quit. Who is it? The Palestinian Authority says no longer going to give Hamas money to celebrate suicide bombers, right? Just in the last 2 days. Why'd they do that? Why today? Because the message is getting out. I think what he said in the Middle East was, if you put terrorism behind you, there are a lot of things I can do to help you. If you don't, I'm going to make your life extremely hard. And I think that people are waking up to that message.
Yeah, that whole thing about cutting off Qatar, that was amazing because that was really like kind of a blindside. No one saw that coming.
Right.
A remarkable thing for those countries to actually say, forget, we're not going to do this thing. It shook the markets up a little bit because it caught them off guard. But I think they understood that this is, in the long run, this is a positive development.
It's a step for stability, which
and,
is what they.
And there's just, how this would not have happened without Trump. I mean, this is one of those things that the president is not going to get credit for. He's just going to continue to get vilified by the media for lots of different things. But these are things that are getting kind of glossed over that he really deserves credit for. I mean, we go back to his trip, to the Middle East, the things that when he addressed all those nations, and he kind of laid down this thing, and I kind of wonder, was that the precursor? I mean, what he said there a few weeks ago, did that actually, did the Saudis and they sort of think, well, wait a minute here, does that help them kind of push them along a little bit?
Do it, and he approved some military hardware for the Saudis, which gives us jobs, all made in the United States, and he's done some things for them. He's showing Middle East, you're in trouble as a government because your people seek prosperity and can't get it. Okay, I can help you get the prosperity, but I'm not going to help a terror state. I will help people who are trying to do the right thing, right? And I think the message was loud and clear. I think they got it, and it's one of those things we're nattering over, Michael Flynn and the Turkish ambassador or whatever, and this is a huge consequential shift in American foreign policy. It seems to me all beneficial to the West, that began with the Trump administration. I mean, it's the previous administration was going in the other direction.
Right. I mean, yeah. I just keep looking at this and just keep thinking, these are changes. There are a lot of these things that we have been needing to do for a long time. Yeah. And really, thanks to President Trump on this for basically taking a hard line, leading the way, and saying this is what will happen. I can do this if you do this, and voila, by kind of almost a miracle, it's happening.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time believing that an Obama or a Clinton would have ever done this, though it wasn't as big a deal. This kind of thing wasn't a deal really under Clinton, but. I can't see Obama ever taking that kind of a line to lead.
No, he would never. That was not what he was. And he didn't understand these kind of possibilities. I think also if you look at how Obama reacts to Trump now, it is a guy who's like, man, I didn't realize I could have done that. Right? How does he keep doing things that I didn't think of? That I never even tried to push, and here he is, just almost effortlessly pushing all these buttons. It's big, dramatic change. People don't understand, regulatory reform is done more in the last 6 months than it did in the previous, 25, 30 years. This is a sea change in how we interact with government.
Right. And I think this is, what Trump has done here is, I guess he kind of looked at this as something like, this is what the status quo has been. This is what everybody's been doing. But we don't have to do it this way. What if we did this and pushed the envelope? And that's what, Obama and other, politicians, they're like, no, you see, we can't do that because no one's ever done it before, and we're afraid of the reaction we're going to get. Well, guess what? Look what happens when you do push that and you do lay down the law. Things change.
Right, and it's like, in, say, basketball, for example, we used to throw the ball inside, big men all one, Kareem, Bill Russell, all that. So, Wilt Chamberlain. Now it's a 3-point game, right? It's still basketball, but it's evolved. It's, and so this is, they keep saying, he's throwing out 60 years of American foreign policy. That American foreign policy needs to be updated, right? We're, the other thing about NATO, they're all, he's cutting off, wouldn't say Article 5, this and that. What's going on? And everybody who's worried about Russians slowing their gas supplies and all that kind of stuff. What's going on in those countries? They're figuring out a way to get to 2% of GDP of defense spending, right? They may be Trump is a jerk and all this, but they are trying to do what NATO needs them to do, what they promised NATO to do. And if they're going to be, stand as equal partners in this, like they pose as, when everyone knows we're paying all the bills, then you need to put up. You want equal say, you want equal respect, you have to pay the money. Right.
This is kind of maybe a little bit akin to he's no longer going to kick the can down the road. This is it. I mean, I'm going to take action. I'm going to do this. Everybody else just keeps kind of playing the same game, and they kick the can down the road, and the problems only they never get solved.
Right. He doesn't get the jaw. That's the part. You say he's not a politician. There's things he doesn't know. It's like one of the things he doesn't know is to sit around yakking about things for 40 years when the solutions are widely agreed on.
That's right. Yeah.
He never was in that program. So his thing is like, hey, we can change this today. Signed. Here we go.
Right. All right. Well, let's I was talking a little bit about London here. Let's talk about a couple more things here. So we had the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. So he and the president are not on the same wavelength right now.
Right. Well, he says, your city is becoming unsafe, right? And it was like, oh, that's insensitive. Well, he lashed out at Trump, right? He's saying that Trump's posture is causing these people to get mad and do this stuff. They're not doing it to us, they're doing it to you.
Right.
The posture that draws them out is not aggressive defense, it is weakness, right? What they're seizing on is weakness. The cops have no guns. They ran away from this, right? The cops ran away. They had no guns. They had no way of handling it. They ran away. What Trump is saying is, if you keep running away, if you keep having no-go zones and so forth, you're giving away your country. And we're not going to do that. We're not going to support your idea of doing that. We're not going to pretend we think that's smart, and we're not going to do it here.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because but I guess it's predictable in the sense because of all this that's going on there. He's using this as an angle to say support the Labor Party because we have the elections are coming up in 2 days,
right.
and the polls are saying that the Labor Party's within 1%. But I was on the way in today. I was listening to some Bloomberg radio, and they do a lot of they actually report. This is coming out of the UK, and they were saying actually when you look behind the polling numbers, the top line numbers, you see that the support and for Theresa May and everything like that is actually extremely high. So they were saying that the polls may look like this, but don't expect them to actually be like that on Thursday. That this may be a lot like what happened in France, is that the worry about Le Pen being really close, and it really wasn't that close in the end. The Tories should be fine, but it does right in the meantime it casts a little bit of a pall over Great Britain because no one's quite sure. We've had these terror attacks. People are now throwing out the possibility of a hung parliament, and instead of strengthening her position, they'll actually take a step back. I think they're going to be fine.
I think they're fine too. I think it's like the people barking about 2018 here. It's like you're not any closer to taking over the House or the Senate than you were when all this started.
Yeah, and what is a Labor Party really offering?
Right.
They want to spend money when they don't have the money.
They want more of same.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to address the immigration problem. they don't want to address, these things that are happening on the London Bridge. I don't think that you can win like that. I think that the people of England, they may not love the Tories, but I don't think that they can. I think that it's clear even to them that this is a problem.
Right. Okay. So all the other things have been happening too. So we've had some interesting things here. So CNN's Reza Aslan went ahead and he got so mad at Trump after the London attacks and what Trump had tweeted out that he called Trump a piece of S, and I'm not going to go on with that. It's a family show, right, guys? In a tweet, and that sat there for at least a day or so before he finally apologized. I mean, CNN was a little bit slow on the uptake on this.
Of course.
Yeah.
And how you present yourself. And this guy's a cannibal, right? Didn't he eat brains or something? Yeah, right? He did.
And his show's been renewed for 2018. But at this stage, because it doesn't air till later, they could actually pull it if there was enough pressure on him to do that. But what I thought was interesting was that where Twitchy had in his apology he said, this was I lost my head kind of thing. This is well, yeah, I shouldn't say.
My friends wanted to
but that he this is not the way he normally reacts and he normally says these things. But but Twitchy came out and they showed that he had several tweets in the past where he's gone and he's used the same exact language against Dinesh D'Souza, against Sean Hannity and others. So it's like, no, this is not an aberration. This is part of his pattern of behavior.
Just cusses at everybody.
Yeah.
I think that Trump should just forego the cannibal vote. Just whoever runs a Democrat, just, you can have all the cannibals. The thing about this is the sad part about this is, like I'm old enough to remember when there was no cable TV,
right?
And then cable TV started, and CNN was a miracle of cable TV. It was news all the time from all over the world. We learned things we'd never learned before, and the last 5 or 6 years, it's been different. It's been, and it may be longer than that, but. For a long time, this was a real window on the world before other people came in and started doing it. And now to just see it, it's, tripe, and it's just this kind of stuff. How vulgar. I guess they were caught faking a demonstration or something.
Yeah, there's something where now they've defended, I think, that whole thing about whether or not that was
standard practice. Which
they said I mean they were just letting these people in through a line or something or other. I mean, it seems like a pretty weak excuse to defend that stuff. Yeah. It does seem like they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, kind of a thing, like they had set this thing up. But this is, as we have discussed time and time again, the media's narrative on anti-Trump continues to play out in all these different avenues. It's like, okay, so the president he sent out a tweet about the travel ban before he commented about the horrors of the whole London attack, and so he's getting vilified for that. But I mean, in the long run, Joe, I mean, he's being proven right in what he's saying anyway. Reminders to the people that if you have open borders, if you don't know who's coming into your country, if you're not doing things, these problems are going to exist. I mean, we don't have these direct problems. We're not seeing these attacks in our country, but we're darn vigilant, or trying to
own who comes in.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we can't. We're not doing a great job over the border itself per se. But but those border crossings are way down since Trump took office. So there is this effect that we're having.
The problem is, the biggest problem, and it was the problem on 9/11, and it's the problem today, is visa overstays. So at the time of 9/11, there were 44 people in the whole country whose job it was to make sure that if you had a 6-month visa, that 6 months and 1 day, you get out, right? You're no longer legal here. It's like you get a 6-month visa, you just move to Sedalia, Texas, and get a job, right? And keep going, and so you're here, right? But that's the thing. That's a real security risk. It's an even bigger risk in Canada. That's when people laugh about a border wall with Canada, but Canada is not careful about who comes in at all. And at some point, you may have to do that if the hostility is at the United States in that way. I don't think it'll be, but that there is a threat from there too, because people from elsewhere in the world, they can get to Canada as easily as they can get to Mexico or whatever.
Yeah, well, you bring up an interesting point here with the visa overstays, because it has been something that's been in the back of my mind for a long time in terms of, I haven't studied the issue deeply, but is there some kind of solution to prevent that from happening? I mean, is there a way for the government to track these people down somehow?
Like you turn orange on the day after it expires.
Yeah, right. I mean,
we all know the orange people gotta go.
I mean, is this a case where, you have, if that's your main source of identification and it's electronically done somehow, that when that overstay occurs, that if you go someplace to resettle and you have to get new bank accounts or whatever, that this ID no longer becomes valid and raises a flag. And I don't want to get into this whole thing about creating a police state or whatever, which is what the left will say, but it's so easy to do.
Interesting discussion on Facebook, believe it or not, about this the other day. If you are, the state's job is to protect property, basically, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's really the only legitimate purpose, is to protect property. If you can't tell, like, which one of us is Don Irvine, then how do we tell, like, why can't I just go to your house? I'm Don Irvine. I live here now. You get out, right?
Right.
So there has to be some way to say, who is us,
right?
Which is which. So I guess there's a way to do that without an ID, but I think that ID, in the present day and time, is probably the more practical way.
Yeah. So this will be interesting to see how this goes. Another thing here in the media. So Thomas Roberts, MSNBC, he asked a question. He was interviewing somebody, asking if Trump, through all these actions, is he provoking a terror attacks? I mean, is this insane?
Trump, if there were a lot of terror attacks in the United States, that would be really bad politically for Trump.
Yeah.
Trump's thing is, we're projecting strength to keep this out. If it started happening all over the place, that would be bad for him. So I don't know why he would want to provoke one, just from a, straight. But the derangement, the separation from reality of this stuff. It's like they have told themselves this series fevered pitch lies. It like feeds on itself. The dog is chasing its tail.
Well, I mean, the thing too about Roberts is that he doesn't see anything wrong with that question.
Right.
He doesn't think that he did anything wrong in asking that question, and you're like, what planet are you in? What universe are you living in anymore? How do you do that? One of the reasons we don't have terror attacks in here too, and we won't for a while, even longer probably, is because of Trump and just this hard line. It's like, why would you want to attack the United States when you've got this president who's, he's pretty tough. He's laid it out in terms of what will happen and what we're going to do, which is what other countries have not done.
Right. And it would be extremely damaging to him politically,
right, if
there were a lot of terror attacks.
Right.
So no, I do not think he is trying to do a terror attack. And I think that it's the sad thing is, like, you're talking in a circle, right, so much that you can't see out of the circle at all. That's
right.
What's happening here is that circle's getting ever more intense, and
yeah, we kind of talk about kind of the whole like the media bubble. They are now they're encased in this thing, and it's just going like this on them.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like what I always would say, the kind of that whole Bill Clinton syndrome. They're going in on this thing. They're now believing their own lies and their own narrative so much that they think that is the reality.
And if we just keep investigating, something will happen. The other thing is, the Post talked the other day about this. It's like, Trump is not being able to enact any of his agenda. All he is doing is repudiating Obama's agenda. Well, first of all, that's a full-time job too. That could take.
That's true.
A lot of stuff had to be undone. People underestimate how destructive Obama's administration was to this country on such a wide variety of levels. And so, a lot of stuff has to be, the environment, the economy, defense, posture in the world, the border, taxes, fiscal policy, so much needs to be fixed. Getting the regulatory, fist out of people's face. Undoing it, also, it's like, hey, presidents, if you want your stuff to survive you, go through the process, right? We did the phone and the pen. What's being erased is the stuff that was done by the phone and the pen, including Paris this week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and we've said this before, time and time again too. It's just that, I mean, Trump had a very ambitious agenda, and if you thought that these things were going to happen lickety split, that wasn't going to wait. The government doesn't operate that way. You cannot just change that overnight. But the fact that he's put these things out on the table and he's thrown down the gauntlet, as I said before, already is a sea change mentally and everything like this. That these changes will come, whether you like it or not, I think, because he is determined to get these things through. But you have to pick your battles along the way and say, what's going on here. You mentioned Paris. Yeah, there's been a lot of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that here shortly. But he can't unwind it all. I mean, this is you're talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, 100 years, all this stuff.
Intellectual rot.
Right. It's just been ingrained, and you can't just undo it all in one fell swoop. Speaking of intellectual rot, Bill Maher. Good. I like that. I like that. I think that's a good segue. So Bill Maher was interviewing Senator Ben Sasse, and as I was seeing it, now they were talking. I mean, Ben Sasse was talking about like working in the fields, and he's from Nebraska. They have they actually farm there. I mean, they have fields there.
That's most of what it is.
Right. And so Maher responds, talking about what you want me to become the House, and he drops the N-word, and he really hasn't suffered for this. I mean, he's apologized, but there's really not been much of a repercussion for him on this. I mean, don't you think he's getting away with this? I mean, this one is.
You know what? He does things for shock value.
Yeah.
And him not getting shock out of it, I don't know that that's a negative. It's just we've sort of said, okay, you're going to get a certain level of crudity, coarseness, defining deviancy down out of this guy. And, if you jump through every hoop that he puts up every Friday night, it gets exhausting. And it's just sort of one of the ones. Does it indicate a double standard? Which is, yeah, of course, right? Of course, if someone right of him said it. But I mean, I think, Maher, he manages to anger everybody from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, he can be an equal opportunity offender. I will say that.
Every once in a while, he comes up with something, and you're like, hey, stuck it to the lefties today. So, but I mean, I think I almost think it's a positive that we've sort of just tuned it out. It's just white noise now.
Yeah, well, what I thought was interesting, and maybe this is part of the whole double standard part of this too, is that Al Sharpton, was upset with him. Now, once again, if this had been a conservative, I mean, Sharpton would have gone a step further. He would have brought in Jesse Jackson. They would have brought in that whole cabal, and they would be demanding firing and everything else going on there. He complained. He called him out on that, but that seems to be the end of it.
Yeah.
It's like, because hey, he's one of our brothers, kind of.
Helping my brother understand.
Yeah, it's like, by the way, don't do that again. But that's about the end of it. The other thing that I think is interesting too, but not surprising, is that, remember, so this is an HBO program. Reza Aslan was doing his CNN thing when he tweeted out this thing. I mean, both Time Warner companies, owned by the same company, kind of look at the whole corporate attitude to where their employees or their hired hands or whatever you want to call them go and they do what's their reaction to this?
Their instructions are go for shock. Right?
Yeah,
it bleeds, it leads, and I mean the New York Post front page mentality.
Right, and they're hoping that this will blow away, and it will in time, because news and everything moves so quickly. People will forget this in time, especially as long as
not much time.
Yeah, right. As long as Maher doesn't repeat this too soon, people forget about it, because we just have to keep moving on to other things. Moving on to yet another person, Kathy Griffin. She provided a lot of entertainment last week. I mean, the whole tearful, press conference led by Gloria Allred's daughter, Lisa Bloom, turning this into that she's now, the Trump family bullied her, and it's a bunch of old white men trying to ruin her career.
Right. They bullied her. They're sitting there minding their own business when all of a sudden you showed up with a severed head, and then it's all their fault. The press conference was it was really crazy. If you watch it, it's almost like, they said, how actors, like, if I'm going to play a lumberjack in the movie, right? I'll start walking around talking lumberjack just in my life.
Get into character.
Sort of get into it. And it seemed like she was trying to talk herself into character because it was completely devoid of reality. You're being picked on. You're the one who did this. He said, as far as I know, what did he say? That's gross and disgusting or whatever.
Yeah.
He had like one tweet, right? And then he's like, irrelevant, move on, who cares? You know?
And she had apologized. She had done this video apology, not to the president directly, but in general to her fans, because she's trying to save her hiney on this and save her career, because everybody's dropping her. I mean, even Al Franken canceled a book event with her. I mean, because she's toxic at this point. But then Gloria, Lisa Bloom gets into her head, so it's like, okay, we're going to remake this thing. We're going to refashion this thing as that you're now the victim.
Well, they're trying to provoke him into saying something that they can then make a lawsuit after.
And he stayed away from it.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like whatever, and he was like friends with her 2 or 3 years ago, right? But her thing, and it's like it's the same as with Maher in that, it's like I'm the one who's willing to be a little bit nastier than everybody else, right? Because she said something about, no one else will go for Barron, his 11-year-old son, but I will. I'm willing to go that extra mile. Well, that's good. What does that say about you? That you can't do it? I think about all the good comedy that was done with no swear words and no dirty subject. Just like I used to watch Cosby and like him being asleep and some kid coming up to him while he's asleep, right, was hilarious, right? That's simple, innocent scene. Anybody can do it, right? But that's you. Did you choose to do that? Did you choose to try to really do the work, or just I will be more vile than anyone else, right? That's it. It's almost like porno. I'm willing to take off my clothes, which is also in her past.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing too is just her reaction, how she came on. She said that she was very disappointed in Anderson Cooper not defending her. I mean, what was Cooper and what was he supposed to really do?
Don't do indefensible things.
Right. I mean, and even though if she gets fired from CNN, I mean, that went beyond. We talked just now about CNN, the whole shock value for Time Warner. That was beyond. That crossed the line so far over. They had no choice but to do that. So I will give them credit for doing that. I give credit to everybody who has disassociated themselves from her. And she's got. Not when we said this before. Not that we knew that she had much of a career before, but she's got nada now.
She got well. So I guess she's playing somewhere this weekend. So that'll be interesting.
Somebody
has a show in Vegas somewhere or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that would
turns out for that one.
That would exactly. Moving on, New York Times decided that they were going to eliminate the public editor position. So this is basically like an ombudsman. They've been disappearing from the newspapers over the years. The Washington Post has this public editor or reader advocate or whatever they're calling Margaret. Margaret Sullivan actually was the public editor before. At the Times has had Liz Spade, who's the last one. She was the sixth one. They established this after the Jason Blair scandal. Now I remember going back when this was going on because Accuracy in Media for a long time has been advocating for this. The Washington Post has had one for, basically for like 40 some years, and the current editors don't really like it, but they live with it. But it's something that they see now. The New York Times as well. We have the internet. We have all this rapid response. We don't really need this anymore. So Spade decided that even though her contract runs till next year, she went ahead and wrote her final column this weekend and kind of took a shot at the establishment media, as to who's going to kind of check, the New York Times and the Washington Post at this stage. She's, will they kind of rush to judgment, she said, on some of these things in an era of Trump, because that's basically what they've been doing. They've been rushing to judgment. Not that Spade is a conservative, but it's kind of an interesting take. And her predecessors, many of her predecessors, have admitted at one time or another, whether or not it was Daniel Okrent, the first one, Bill Keller, Arthur Brisbane, they all had said one point or another, sometimes in their parting columns, that they would admit that the New York Times, has a liberal mentality, is a liberal newspaper, which they don't want to say that they are.
Right. And so do I think it's a bad idea? No, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think the newspapers are thinking about, what they are and what they need to be differently than they did, like when I was doing that, for instance. and like they're in the past they would have helped us understand Trump. It would have helped us understand the sea change and what all it meant. Now they just want to attack it, and they don't want to be called on it. I mean, that's sort of the long and short of it, right? But it's not, because the metrics, the things that a public editor uses to measure good or bad, the goalposts are moving on that, right? And it's like the Post is not, there's no pretense of we're trying to cover this administration and tell you what's going on. We are trying to develop independent lines of attack, fresh lines of attack every day.
Right, and it wasn't. I mean, Spade wasn't. The problem with this position has always been is just that you're there as kind of that advocate. You're supposed to be looking at the paper critically, but you're being paid by the paper.
Right.
You're working. You're in the newsroom basically too. So you're somewhat tasked with trying to give a valuation of people that you know and you see on the regular.
Halls with them.
Right, and that's difficult. It takes a real special person, I think, in a lot of ways, to be able to separate themselves, saying, "Look, this is what my job is. I realize I may be biting the hand that feeds me, but that's what my job is to take a critical look at this." And there have been some critical looks, and Spade has done a few, but she's definitely been kind of her tenure was a little rockier. There was a lot. She had a lot of feuds with the management and with the newsroom.
Because it's a hard job.
Right, it's a very tough job.
Now Sullivan is actually a media critic who is free to cover the Post, but she is not a public editor. She's not like what Paxton was, right? That's
right. Yeah,
okay.
they changed the definition of what she does.
So when Paxton left, he left right after Bezos bought the paper from the Grahams, and he wrote the Grahams Bezos this long memo about where he thought everything stood at the Post. He only recommended firing one person, Jed Rubin.
How did I know that was going to come back to that? Your favorite person.
He said 75% of the time, someone tells him there was something incorrect in the Post, as opposed to, not my opinion, or you're stretching this out of proportion or whatever, but factually incorrect. Right not left, black not white, whatever. She was responsible. 75%, one person. So,
and yet she's still there.
And yet she's still there. So it shows you. Well, she has read the tea leaves. What does the boss want? And she's like one of these furiously manufacturing attack lines every day.
All right. Okay. So I better not ignore this, because this was also news that came out yesterday. Go take a step back. So we have an arrest for leak of documents, classified documents, from this.
This is the new reality.
Right. Yeah, I know. Go ahead and lead into that. There's so many jokes that you can make out of this. So this 25-year-old contractor. Reality Lee Winner. Reality Winner. How did this happen? That to come up with that name of all people to be this person. And she's admitted she leaked these documents. One thing, when you're reading the articles on this, you're kind of scratch your head a little bit. She did this despite the fact that the trail just led directly back to her. The printer, the whole 9 yards. It's like.
She wasn't even trying that hard to get away with it.
Yeah, she couldn't have been.
She was making a statement.
Yeah.
I think the thing to do with this, like people talk about the death penalty, even the people, like the academics who are for the death penalty, admit that only about 2% of the potential killers say, if I'm going to get the death penalty, I won't do it. Even have the possibility of having that thought, okay? But the people, the leakers, the reality Lee winners of the world, should be reality show winners, right? And then it would be perfect, of the world, can be deterred, right? And how they will be deterred is, we will see you when you're 40. You go away for 15 years.
Well,
okay?
I want
to only take one. So, we can't fill the beds. You don't have. You fill one bed with reality Lee winner, and a lot of those other 25-year-old people say, not me. I'm not trying to go away for 15 years.
Yeah, she's a Sanders supporter.
What is she doing there anyway? The other thing is, like, we talk about this all the time. Fire everyone you can fire. Okay, they'll see the ones you need. It's like the one thing the State Department has had, and you keep reading the letters in the Post about, man, he's like all these undersecretaries. How are we supposed to run this place with all these people not in office? Well, maybe we didn't need all those people, right? It's like the old when it snows, the what is it? Necessary employees, whatever they say.
Oh yeah, the essential employees, essential
right?
employees
So
only.
We're getting like what's really an essential employee?
Yeah,
and we're getting an answer that's far smaller than the number of employees we have. So we may find out from here to here is too much. It needs to come up to here, but it's nowhere near here going to be anymore, right? It's going to. That's another thing. It's like. That's one thing Trump has done that's going to be permanent. You're not going to be able to just ladle on people on all these things so you could just appoint your buddies anymore. He's saying, don't appoint your buddies. I don't have any buddies. Everybody hates me, so no buddies will be getting jobs. We're going to see how few people we can use for this enterprise.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point because my father worked at the Federal Reserve, and this goes back. I mean, he retired in 1977 after he'd been working there for some 25 years. But you go back to even then, and he was complaining then in the 70s about the bureaucracy and about the growth of that particular agency in essence. That was over 40 years ago when he was complaining about those things. You can only imagine what it's like. What it's like today. We know. So yeah, do we really need to fill all these positions? This is part of that exponential growth of just padding the budgets of these various agencies because they know they get done. We got to spend the money. We'll hire some more people, and then they become kind of permanent fixtures in there no matter what. Trump is trying to go in there. So, government can run a lot better and a lot more efficiently with fewer people in general.
And it needs to be a lot more effective because,
Yeah.
How does Reality Lee Winter get a security clearance? Right? Who didn't run a routine look at her social? I mean, she was not hiding it. She was saying what she was and what she was for. How did no one notice that? How do we say it's okay to give her secrets?
Right. I mean, you can find out so much about people, especially when you're doing the security clearance, that there should be no secrets. There should be nothing you don't really know about these people. And it's like there should have been red flags raised at the beginning.
All over the place.
Yeah. That's just kind of ridiculous. All right. So we also have a bunch of different things in here. We have James Comey. Looks like he's testifying. The White House is not going to stop him. Is he going to be somewhat restricted in what he's going to say because of some things that he knows, though? I mean he can't go kind of like full out. He's still, even though he's not the FBI director, he's still under. There's still some things he can't say.
Right, and he is. Everyone thinks that he is going to, he is vengeful and he's going to stick it to Trump for firing him. Let me tell you a Comey story. Okay, he has a daughter who's tall, used to have a pretty good handle, could shoot. I tried to recruit her, okay? I asked him about it about 3 or 4 times. Lived in McLean, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, we're a real close family, and sometimes on the weekends we just go to Charlottesville. And I don't want to leave you. I don't want that to be you're left high and dry. Your player you're expected's not here. So I don't get into stuff like this because I want to be able to spend all the time with my family I want. Now, I guess the kids are obviously older and gone now. Yeah. This is several years ago. But I don't think that he was livid with being fired.
Yeah.
I think he was just fine with driving home that day. And I don't think he's going to come out, all over Trump. I think he's going to say there's a lot of stuff he can't say. And I think when they try to get him to say, Trump intimidated me or kicked me out or shouldn't have fired me because I was getting close to something or whatever, he's not going to do it. But he is going to say, yeah, we were looking at a wide range of stuff that still needs to be looked at. So it's going to be like, the story of Comey for the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. He disappoints everybody. He disappoints them, then disappoints us, then disappoints them, and I think it'll all happen in the same day.
Yeah, and we haven't seen anything happen really. I mean, they keep pounding away on the whole Russia and all this stuff. It is like there's nothing out there. They need to kind of just move on and go on with these things. But the Democrats are going to, they keep trying to gin this up, but there's just nothing there.
They'll get him. The Republicans will get him to say, hopefully, assuming they've done their staff work. That's been a real issue with the House HIPSI. The Republican staff work has been particularly poor, and it's really hurt them. But assuming they're ready for the hearing, I think they will get him to say that Trump is not a direct target of the investigation, which is a Trump kind of a trophy that he wants. But they will say, comma, but do you see Russian involvement in the Trump campaign? And he will say, yeah, probably so. So, and I think he will say Trump, the Russians are responsible for the WikiLeaks leaks, of DNC, which I don't know anymore that that's true.
Right. All right. So then Comey's successor, I thought, we were pretty close to getting one, and now it doesn't seem, that looks like that may not happen for a while.
I need a fresh list. Yeah, I think that, McCabe has got it as long as he doesn't work on anything to do with this.
Yeah.
They won't upset the apple cart. And if he doesn't, if he just goes and be's an FBI director for a while, that's probably okay.
Yeah.
Until they find the magic person. I think they would love Trey Gowdy to do it, but Trey Gowdy is disgusted with this place. He thinks the whole thing is stupid. So I don't know that he wants to involve himself in something where he can't leave.
Right. All right. Megyn Kelly launched her television program on Sunday night. Ran up the big hype with her interview with Putin. Wasn't really that great an interview.
It wasn't, and he's difficult.
Yeah.
He's famously hard to corral and so forth, and he says a lot of things that can be interpreted several different ways. And he generally says something that leaves everyone of every political stripe a little angry, and all those things happen. And she it was like dealing with Trump. She looked like they talk in baseball about 4A players, so you really kill AAA.
Yeah. When
you get to the majors, you're just not quite good enough. That's her with those guys. When she gets in with Trump, when she gets in with this guy, top people, she can't keep up with them. They get ahead of her, and you can see the look on her face. Oh, I didn't anticipate that answer. I have nothing to come back.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure what the purpose of the program is. I mean, she finished third in the total viewer ratings for that night. Now, Sunday night was a difficult night to win because you're facing the pregame for the NBA Finals with so you're already facing a tough nut there. But she finished third on total viewers behind a repeat of a 60-minute show, though she did finish second in the demo, which is important. The Sunday night's somewhat of a little bit of a wasteland on television, so it's not necessarily the best showcase to put a program on. Not quite sure what the NBC brass is, I guess, and they're just trying to kind of figure this thing out. Her program's only going to be on the air until football season. Then it goes away, and it'll come back after the Olympics. It seems like the real focus, though, is the fact that she's going to have the morning show starting in the fall, which will be her regular gig every day.
I mean, the guys been taking shots at 60 Minutes for 40 years now. Everybody's like, let's try this, try that.
Nothing works.
Nothing works. It is what it is.
And do
powerful brand.
Right. And can you beat them with another interview news magazine show? I mean, how much of that?
Maybe. I mean, if you better get big time guests, and you better get you better be able to interview them more.
Well, yeah, you better have your AA plus game or whatever on that. So that's the thing. I think that I don't know how much NBC is paying her. We know it's got to be probably a pretty probably a lot of money. I mean, Fox offered her $20 million. That's what it reported. So it has to be somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So they need to find a way to get their money's worth out of her. But I just kind of wonder.
It was a long time moving in over there.
Yeah.
It was like the process was
the whole thing started like in January, I think, and then, so we're here.
And then she had a long vacation.
Yeah,
and there was she might never show up.
Right. I mean, they had to work out the deal as to when her contract, when she could actually do something. A lot of little different legal things going on there. But I kind of wonder if all that time hasn't taken whatever sheen she had off of her a little bit. So she's just not where she was. I mean, if she was able to make the media jump, maybe that would have been better. But all this time that has elapsed, not that big a deal anymore.
Yeah. And plus, the controversy that drove her popularity was, is she really a conservative?
Right.
Right. That's irrelevant in this job. No one cares You're just another interviewer at NBC. They have a stable of people like you.
Right.
But at Fox, it was this, where does she stand in relation to the conservative movement?
Right. Well, I think we'll jump around. You had mentioned Paris climate. I think we'll just talk about that in the sense of, so we had this weekend, we had a March for Truth rally here, and I guess it was in other parts of the country. There were some pro-Trump people that actually did a Pittsburgh, kind of not Paris, demonstration as well. We sent an intern down there to kind of cover the events. It was kind of interesting for what he saw down there. But, ever since Trump announced that we were going to withdraw from this accord, the left has just gone bananas. They've gone loony.
Yeah, and it's the two main things we had to do were CAFE standards, raise the average mile per hour of the cars sold, American-made cars, and the Clean Power Plan. We had already stopped doing the Clean Power Plan, and they stopped doing the CAFE standards a few weeks ago. They took it off because the car makers all said they can't do it without having 20-pound cars that get blown off the road stuff. They're just not there to an SUV that runs normal fuel and gets 55 miles a gallon. They haven't gotten there yet. They will, because if you put one on the market, I would be wanting it because I'm driving SUV all over the place.
I do want to see you in a smart car.
Yeah.
Not going to work.
No. I mean, I don't. It's like you really, you don't want to. You don't want to like drive a car just so you can win crashes.
Yeah.
But you don't want to drive one that's going to lose every crash.
Yeah.
Especially like big guy like me. In and out.
But here's the thing. The other thing too is that a guy, all of a sudden, this thing happens, and then I hear from Al Gore again, where he says, Trump has been reckless. It's like, oh, Al Gore, he's back.
Al, who said that there would be no polar ice by 2013.
Yeah.
How reckless was that? That New York would be underwater by 2000. How reckless was that?
Right. Dr. Gore, the esteemed scientist.
Yeah. You're not close to understanding what you're talking about.
Unbelievable.
Back under the chair.
All right, one more thing before 2-minute warning. Bernie Sanders and this huge book advance he had for his book. So $858,000 total for a couple of books, $795,000 for his bestseller. And then combined with his Senate salary, which is about $174,000, so
pretty good cake.
Yeah, over $1 million in 2016, based for his financial disclosure. Definitely far more than you or I will make.
That puts you in the. Let's all together now. Put you in the
1%. That's man of the people there.
Yep.
How do you defend that for Bernie Sanders? I mean, it's just.
I have to have this stuff because I travel a lot. I need these things. He goes, I understand, you want them, but I need them, which is always the thing. The people on the left, the people are the problem, right?
Well, I mean, Bernie Sanders, Michael Moore, I mean, they have all this money. The socialists, but they live and thrive on the capitalist system. They have the second homes and all this kind of stuff, and they don't think anything's wrong.
Right. And it's like, what's good for me, not for thee. Right?
That's right. That's right. Thing. All right, 2 minutes, go.
2 minutes. We're down to 2 weeks till the Georgia thing now. So the guy she has gone back ahead. Powerful new ad in that thing where they're showing all the stuff that happened like on Inauguration Day when they were burning up the cars and all the riots and so forth. And they're like, these are the people who are paying for Joel Ossoff. And it's good ad. It's good. It's a third party. It's not her. Not coordinated, but a good ad, and I think that's turned back her way, the Karen Handel.
Yeah, so that's good because the last thing I saw was that the polls were pretty darn tight. Once again, we can't tell. You will not know until Election Day, but early voting has started.
Yeah.
So that also, we've talked about, the negative aspects of early voting because if there's something that happens in the last few days, a lot of people have already voted.
Could be some body slams.
Yeah, there could be some more body slams. I'll just say, and then too, is that you talk about the other elections coming up too, is that in your state, Virginia, the Republican, I assume that Gillespie will win probably in Virginia on the Republican side.
Well, some talk about like making trouble and voting for the Corey Stewart to give us a weak candidate. I've heard some Democrats talking about that.
But the Democrats, I mean, what's that choice? Is that much of a choice for them?
Well, not it's from our side it wouldn't be, but I guess it's an interesting battle because it's Clinton versus Bernie. You
Yeah.
know, it's a Clintonite versus a Bernieite.
So it's possible that the Bernie-crats might take another loss though yet again.
Right, and I think you want, as someone who would not want another Democratic governor in Virginia, although I have to admit that McAuliffe has been relatively harmless because he has not pushed a big social agenda. He's been mostly economic development type of governor, and brought a lot of money and jobs out of the state.
All right. Well, we're out of time. Thanks a lot for joining us with the Bias Buzz. We'll be back again at our regular day and time next week. And until then, see you.